Alright, so we're just going to be doing a little bit of firearms familiarity today on the semi-automatic. Is everybody carrying a semi-automatic for concealed carry?
Yes.
Revolver?
Oh wait, sorry. Yes, yeah. No.
So no revolvers?
No.
Okay. What kind of gun do y'all have?
Glock 19.
Glock 19.
It's a Smith & Wesson, but it's like a Glock style.
M&P or Shield?
Something like that, yeah.
I think it's like Alex River or
Okay.
something.
LCP or something?
LCP, yeah.
Okay. Well, I happen to have a Glock 19 right here, so we'll do that. Have you read your owner's manual on the Glock?
Yes,
Great. Do you know how to clean it?
I do.
Perfect. You all know how to clean the guns yet. Okay, part of the pistol course. Okay, so what are the rules of gun safety? There's four main ones that I'm looking for.
Don't point the weapon at anything you don't plan to destroy.
Always want to point the gun in a safe direction. The muzzle of the gun, which is the front of the pistol where the bullet comes out, you never want to have that pointed at anything you're not willing to destroy or you can't afford to replace. What's the other one?
Finger off the trigger.
Fingers should always be off the trigger. A good placement is right out here on the frame of the gun, right? It's not anywhere in here in this trigger guard. My finger's not touching the trigger right now, but it's in that trigger guard, and that just tells me that you're not aware of where your finger's at. So unless you're actively shooting, it should be right out here like this. So if you take a pistol course on the range and you're done shooting and you're asking me a question and your finger's on the trigger or something like that, I'm going to say, hey, where's your finger? Where's the other one? There's another one. Assume guns are loaded and know your target and what is beyond. If you follow those rules of gun safety, I promise you, you will never, ever have an accidental discharge. Ever. It's impossible. Just point it in a safe direction. Keep your finger off the trigger unless you're shooting. And those other two things. I unloaded these guns before class. I can see there's several out here displayed on the table, but I have to check it again because I have to assume they're loaded, right? So if you see a gun laying down and you want to pick it up, and let's say you want to dry fire, you want to clean it or whatever, okay, and so the NRA actually teaches you to pick up the gun like this first by the muzzle, picking it up like this, and then you attach your hand. First thing you want to do when that gun's pointed in a safe direction, you want to take that magazine out. And the way you do that is you take your finger on that magazine release and you eject the mag. There's no rounds in there, but there could be a round in the chamber, okay? So with the gun pointed down, your finger's off the trigger in a safe direction. I'm going to camp that gun to the right just a little bit, and I'm going to rack that slide back. I like to do it 3 times just to create a habit of that, muscle memory. And if you're wondering why, sometimes it doesn't come out on the first try, especially when you're new to handguns. And that muscle memory, let's say you're under stress or something, you're clearing your firearm, that 3 is just a good habit. That's what the police taught me, and I like that. But you didn't see a bullet come out of the chamber, but you need to lock your slide back and visually check it. The way you do that is you got a little slide stop right up here, and you probably can't see it on the camera, but it moves up. You lock that slide stop up with your thumb, you pull that slide back, and now I can look into the chamber and I can inspect it and I see that it's empty now. It's kind of dark in there. It's kind of dark in there to see. I don't know if the camera will actually pick this up or not, but chamber's empty. That's why a flashlight's always good to have. Take a flashlight and you can shine it down into that chamber. Kind of hard on the angle, but I think that probably caught it. And then I can see that chamber's clear. If y'all want to come up, take a look at this really quick. You can see into that chamber. It's hard to see, right? Look at that muzzle straight down. If you shine a flashlight in there, you can see that hole. That's where the bullet goes in. So now you can see that it's clear. Okay, you can sit down now. So now we know that the gun is clear. We're going to talk about the semi-automatic handgun. This is a double action, and most of these types of guns are. The double action means the trigger cocks and releases the hammer. Cocks it, and well, in this case, it's a striker, or firing pin that's inside, but it cocks and releases. This part right here of the gun is the slide. This is your front sight. These are your rear sights. These are glow-in-the-dark night sights. If you want to get these on your gun, they're about an extra $100. This is the frame of the gun, this plastic piece. Glock guns are plastic on the frame. This is your trigger guard. This is your trigger. This is your takedown lever. I don't know if you can see, but right here on the front, can you all see that?
Yes.
That's the takedown lever. There's one light just like it on the other side. That's how you field strip the gun. That's how you have to pull down on that. Magazine release is right here. That's what I pushed with my thumb when I was taking the magazine out of the gun earlier. This gun has slide rails on it to put a weapon light on there. This is a very popular handgun, the Glock 19. It has a 15-round, double-stacked magazine, 9mm. Double-stacked means when they go in, they kind of offset, so you can get more bullets into here. Very popular concealed carry handgun, but a lot of people use it for home protection because it's big enough to be good for both. And so it's just a really well-rounded gun. But so on these Glocks, you have to pull the trigger to take it apart. It's called a field strip to clean it. And so that's why you want to verify that your chamber is clear. Okay, so I verified that it is. You pull the trigger. Once that trigger is pulled, I put my thumb and my index finger on this little takedown lever, and I pull down on that takedown lever. So I'm holding pressure down, and then my thumb comes over the top of this, and it pulls that slide back just an eighth of an inch, and then that slide comes forward and off of the frame. And this is like plastic. It feels like Tupperware. Cops call these guns Tupperware because they're just plastic. And then you take your recoil rod and spring out of the gun. Here's your barrel. And there's your slide. On this slide here, there's a little firing pin. And it might not be easy to see on the video, but you'll see the little pin sticking out. If you angle it just right. The firing pin is what strikes the primer. And there's a little extractor here on the gun, that little curvy looking thing. That's what pulls the cartridge out of the gun. But that's as far down as you have to take the gun to clean it. Just these 4 parts. You got this frame, recoil rod and spring, barrel, and your slide. Put that recoil rod in, make sure that's in straight. Put it back on the gun. When you put your gun back together after cleaning, and cleaning will be another video that I'll do. I'm not going to do it today because the camera, I'm doing this video on my own and I can't manipulate it down. But once you put the gun back together, check it, make sure it's clear, which it is. Pull the trigger, and then with your finger depressed on the trigger, you're going to pull that slide, reset that trigger, and then you're going to let that out with your finger until you hear a click, and then you pull it again. And that's called the trigger reset, and that just verifies that your gun is, your trigger assembly, and everything works okay. So that gun's all put back together. I'm going to do some little loading exercises with these little thing called dummy rounds. They kind of look like a real bullet, but they have blue tips. I don't see too many blue tips with real bullets. But if you look at the primers on these, they're plastic and they've been punctured. Here, I'll throw one to you so you can look at them. You know it's not a real bullet because the primer is plastic. And I'll show you a real bullet in a minute, but it's going to have a metal primer. So go ahead and toss those back up. Since you've inspected them and you know they're not real. When you're doing dry fire with guns, you always want to make sure you don't have any live ammunition on the table. So I've already cleared everything before the class. When you're loading your magazine, okay, you can load these in wrong. The back of the magazine on the Glock magazine has these little holes, and this kind of tells you about how many rounds are left in your magazine. The back of the magazine also has these two metal lips on it. Okay, that's how you can tell the back. The front has more of a contoured shape to it, and the back is flat. So even if you didn't have these holes, you could tell because it's flat, and these metal lips are on the back. So when you put these in, you just start them in front of these two metal lips, the cartridge, and then you push that in and you push it through with your thumb. And you put it in like that. Gun is still clear. I'm going to drop my slide. When you load the handgun, and I'm going to have you do this a little later, you index the magazine, the front of the magazine with your index finger, and your thumb and your middle finger are on here like this. You cant the gun to the right, and you put that magazine in. I don't know if you can see that or not. Put that magazine in. Give it a good tap. Cool, am I ready to fire now? Will it fire? No. You have to manually cycle this slide all the way to the rear. You want to pull it all the way back until you feel it hit the wall, and then you let it drop. Now the gun's loaded and it's ready to fire. That's called cocking the gun. Okay? Now, pull the trigger. This is decock. Okay? Nothing happens. Cock and decock. To unload the gun, first thing you have to do is to take the magazine out of the gun. Why do we take this out? Why can't I just rack it out?
I just load another one in.
Yeah, it'll eject it, and then it'll just load up another one, and then you'll think you have an empty gun. Magazine out comes out first to prevent any further rounds from coming out. And then when I take this round out of the chamber, the mistake people make again is, they want to unload it to the left, and it's hard to get it out with, you don't have gravity working in your favor. You cant it to the right because it comes out this way and it's easier, right? And then you rack that slide. I saw the round come out. I locked my slide back, and the way I did that was that little slide stop. I held pressure up with my thumb. And when you pull that slide back, it locks back into that notch. Now I can look into my chamber. Not a bad idea to have a flashlight. I can see the gun's clear now. There you go. You can also load the gun with the slide back like this. So when you fired your last round, the slide locks back on the dry magazine. When the magazine's empty, it causes this slide to go back. And so you can load it with it open like this too. When you put the magazine in, you load it like that, and it's ready to go too. Okay. To unload again. Magazine out. Right. Can it to the right. Gun's clear. Loaded. So let's say that you're at the gun range and you're firing shots and you have all the time on the world and you're pointing it at your target. Nothing happens. Hold the gun in a safe direction 30 seconds in case you get a hang fire. That's what you're checking for. The primer can take up to 30 seconds to go boom, to spark. Once 30 seconds has passed, we've ruled out that we have a hang fire. We're going to empty the gun. We're going to take the magazine out. We're going to clear the gun. And we're going to check the barrel for obstructions. Now, I've seen people, look up at point the gun at their face and try to look up and see light, but, you're pointing the gun at your face. That's not a good idea. So you can get your little trusty little bore snake here, and you can feed that down into the chamber. Oh, look, I don't have an obstruction. If you get a squib load, you can get an obstruction. Squib loads, characteristic signs of a squib. If it's not as loud as what it normally is, it does fire, but it's not as loud. It doesn't have as much recoil. It doesn't have as much muzzle flash as it normally does. But you might not notice that. But the danger of the squib is that sometimes the bullet gets stuck in the barrel. It doesn't make it all the way out. And so if you just rack it and, fire another round when you got a plugged barrel, that's not good. So you're checking for that squib. I've had one squib when I first got around handguns. And I was with my brother that had been in the Marine Corps, and he noticed something off about it. And I went to rack it and fire. He's like, no, squib, squib, squib. What? Squid? No, squib. Don't hold it in safe direction. He was telling me what to do. Just ignorant. I didn't ever take any training. This is before I was going into the police academy. I just bought a Glock 17. I was just trying to, get ahead of the curve and learn how to shoot a little bit before I went to the academy. So anyway, he field stripped the gun like I did earlier, and he held it up and you couldn't see light. And so we had to take the barrel and put it in a vise with a tap and a hammer. Tit, 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 and it took like several taps to push the bullet out of the barrel. Squibs do happen. Rare that it doesn't, you get your barrel plugged like that. Reloads will, if you got somebody that doesn't know what they're doing on reloads, if you buy factory ammunition that's not a reload, you're going to minimize your chances of getting squibs and hang fires and stuff like hang fires. I've never had one in 30 years around a gun. Black powder guns do that a lot. So the other malfunction is the misfire, and the misfire is usually what happens. You just pull the trigger, the firing pin strikes the primer on the bullet. Nothing happens because the primer is defective. It doesn't spark. And that's why you probably see a lot of people, they just, rack it and they fire again. But those are your three malfunctions. Now, if you're under stress, some buttheads in your home coming up your stairs with a baseball bat in their hand, threatening to kill you, and you've already warned them to get out because you're nice and you want to give them a warning if you can before you shoot them. And you find yourself shooting, get out of my house! You pull the trigger, nothing happens. Are you going to have time to say, hold on, bad guy, I got to, check my gun for squibs and hang fires first. Time out. No, they're not going to do that, right? So you're just going to have to take a risk by this tap rack exercise. It's in your Utah curriculum. When the gun doesn't fire, you're going to cant the gun to the right. You're going to tap on that magazine to make sure it's seated in there properly. And then you're going to rack the slide. Maybe this was a misfire. Maybe this round was bad. So now by tapping and racking, I've eliminated 2 out of the 2 reasons why I didn't fire that I can think of. So it's probably going to fire now. So I'm just going to do this a couple of more times to show you what it looks like. Bang, tap, rack, bang, tap, rack. And you're keeping the gun up on the target while you're doing that. You don't want to come down here and do this and come back here because that's precious time. That's a second or maybe a little less. That's why you're keeping it up there like that. Tap, rack, bang is something that we practice on the range. It's a really good exercise. You take the pistol course. I'll have you turn your back and I'll mix up some live rounds with dummy rounds in no sequential order, and you'll fire it and it might go boom and it doesn't, and if it doesn't then you do tap and rack because it's a dummy round, and then you might get 3 in a row and then it doesn't do, you just don't know. And so the point of the exercise is to get you used to tapping and racking. But it also tells me what you're doing with your trigger pulls and things like that. So it's a very good exercise to do. There's a malfunction called a stovepipe. It looks like this. The casing sticking out. After you fired the gun, you look in there and there's this little empty casing sticking out of the top of your gun. Everybody ever had any of these? Limp wrist shooting will do this. Unloading it to the left will do this. When you try to do that, sometimes it'll do that. Or other reasons, but those are only two I can think of. But yeah, if you get this right here, it's easy. Just cant it to the right. This is called a double feed. I'll put one dummy round into the chamber. One dummy round. Oh, you sucker, it came out. You got one round in the chamber, and then you got another one from the magazine that's trying to go in there. Can you see that? These are a little bit more of a pain to clear. You take your thumb, you hold that, push that up, that slide stop. You lock your slide back, strip your magazine, rack it. See how it took more than one to get it out? That's why I like to do that. Now you've cleared it, load it, you're in business. That's called the double feed. Gun's clear. Questions so far? No? All right. Now, ammunition. Where are all my ammunition? You've all seen target ammunition, right? Target ammunition. What do they call target ammunition if this was a real bullet?
Steel ball?
Full metal jacket. This is for target ammo, for the range, for practice. And then there's hollow points, right? Hollow points have a hollow tip, right? Didn't know I had that pocket gun in there, did you? For those on the video, that's a hollow tip. See? Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you guys. The anatomy of a bullet. The bullet, which is the hollow tip. The brass part is the casing. The gunpowder charge is inside the casing. And then your primer is that little metal primer. That's when you know you have a real bullet. So notice how it's not plastic and it doesn't have a hole in it where it's been practiced on? That's a real round. Pass that one around. I use hollow tips. I use hollow tips for self-defense for two reasons. Number one, when the hollow point hits a chest cavity or goes through a wall or something like that, it mushrooms out, and that mushrooming spreads the energy more evenly into your target. So it doesn't over-penetrate as much as a target round would do. And so it's less liability. If I'm shooting somebody in a parking lot that's robbing me or something like that, I don't want that bullet going through my bad guy and into some lady pushing a shopping cart. And because the bullet mushrooms out and expands, it creates a bigger wound channel. And so it's going to be more effective at neutralizing somebody trying to kill you. It's going to be more effective at doing it quicker. So, I don't have any target ammo, but you get the point, right? The target, this is the full metal jacket, it just doesn't have the whole target ammo. Target ammo doesn't have as much recoil. It's less expensive. That's why we use it for the range. The law doesn't say whether you do one or the other. So if you know, for some weird reason you wanted to use target ammo, I mean, you could. There's no law, but you just have more liability when you're doing something like that. Okay. What else should we talk about? I wish I had my chart on side alignment, but I don't. As far as gripping the pistol goes, it's not really rocket science, but it kind of is. I mean, there's a lot to gripping the pistol, actually, to do it right. The reason you grip a pistol a certain way is to, number one, to prevent yourself from being injured. You know, I see a lot of new shooters, they pick up a gun for the first time and they hold it like this with their thumb behind the slide. That's going to hurt you. You go to pull that trigger, boom, that slide's going to come back with force, and if your thumb's in the way, you're going to get stitches. It's going to hurt. But the right hand, I'm right-handed, and this is a forward-facing camera, so everything's backwards. So if you're watching the video and I say my right hand, this is my right hand, but on the video it's the left hand, right? Anyway. My dominant hand, my shooting hand, my right hand, left on the video. So people don't think I'm crazy. You're all the way up here on this back strap. If you're all the way up here on this back strap, you're not going to get hurt. I'm all the way up on this back strap, right? It misses my hand. You can just be up here all the way. The support hand. All right? I just attach that on there. I overlap my fingers. My index finger and my thumb are about, even. If it was like that, you just want to readjust it. And this left hand just kind of pulls up and locks in, and that right hand over here is pushing. Push on this side, pulling on the support hand. And that's kind of what that looks like. Right? When you're aiming, you're just bringing that gun up in front of your dominant eye. Sights are lined up with whatever eye your eye is dominant, and we'll do that in a minute. Right? Pull the trigger. It's called dry fire. Once you pull the trigger, reset your slide. When you pull that slide back, it resets the trigger. So you can do another dry fire practice. Okay? When you're actively shooting at the range, you can leave your finger on the trigger while you're firing. Dry fire is what makes you a really good shooter. Practicing this with an empty firearm. When you're done shooting, take your finger off the trigger like I just did. If you're going to take more than an 8-second pause during shooting, like let's say you're shooting and you got a question, hey, comes off the trigger. Dry fire will make you really good. I can't really show you the stance because of the video, but I've got a poster for that. Or do I? This is a bench rest shoot. This is something you'll demonstrate in the NRA class. This is a two-handed standing. This is called the isosceles position right here. And this is obviously one hand. If you're doing one hand, you're just going to put that in front of your dominant eye. So stand up, everybody in the back or in the front. Line up. Put your feet shoulder width apart. Bend your knees. And this is isosceles. Now, are you all right-handed?
Yeah.
take your right foot back a little bit and you can do a modified isosceles and you can shoot like this. Right? Either one. Which one do you like better?
This one.
Yeah, I want the foot back.
Everybody likes this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like. NRA, if you take the class, you just do isosceles because that's what the learning modules talk about. And then when you get on your own, you can, you know, do this too right here. So that's pretty much it. Okay, so you can have a seat now. So I believe we went over the rules of firearm safety when we started, right? We did loading and unloading. We went over ammunition. We went over the tap rack. We went over the stovepipes and double feeds and misfires. We're not going to do cleaning. That's going to be another video. We showed you the grip. Now, on the grip, or sight alignment, just in case you don't know, there's your rear sights and there's your front sight. And they're all little dots. And when you line up your sights, you put the front in the center of the rears. And so if you're looking at them, you've got 3 dots that are in an even row. There's equal height. They're not misaligned at all. The front is perfectly in the center of those rears to where it just looks like 3 dots lined up in a row. And you have equal space on each side. When you're looking down your rears, and I'll let you do it in a little bit, you should have equal gaps. And if you do that, they should be lined up properly. When you're shooting at a target, once you've lined up your front and your rears, you're going to be looking at both your front and your rear sight. And when you shoot at the target, you're going to focus on that front sight. You're going to transition your eyes to the front sight only and wait till your eyes focus on it, like a camera focuses on somebody taking a picture. You know how it's blurry and then it focuses in and it's clear? Don't pull the trigger until you've got a focused front sight. And that front sight, I don't know, hopefully the video will show this, but there's a number right here. And the front sight should be in the center of that target. That's called center hold. You should just see the top of that number, and that would be centered. Okay, so I got to get my isosceles position. I'm going to put my grip in there. I'm going to pull that trigger, and I don't know, hopefully the video, I don't know if it'll show it or not. But the dot's just lighting up. It's not moving too much. If the dot's not moving too much, then that means I got a pretty decent trigger squeeze. It's not, you know, bouncing around like this. If it's bouncing around, you're jerking your trigger. Now your groups are like that big versus like that before, right? When I first started doing it, when they were just lighting up, I had a tight group. And then I started just being reckless with the trigger and jerking it, and they were doing this, and now my groups are like that. So the whole point of the trigger squeeze is to keep that front sight all the way on target, all the way through that trigger pull until the trigger breaks. Don't anticipate the recoil. Don't anticipate the shot. Don't try to guess when, oh, it's going to go off now. Just keep slowly squeezing, applying more pressure until it breaks. And if you don't anticipate the shot going off, then you're not going to be doing stuff like this and having low shots. Another thing the NRA teaches is you do hold. You hold the breath. There's the 5 fundamentals of pistol shooting. The first one, after you've lined your sights on your target, got a good focus sight, you take a breath and you let it out about halfway and you hold during the trigger pull. Hold your breath, then pull. And then you do follow through. Follow through is line up the sight again, another breath, another hold, another trigger pull. Line up the sight, breathe in, let it out halfway, hold. The reason you hold your breath is because it minimizes body movement. And so for new pistol shooters, that's what you do, you hold. When you've been around guns like me 30 years and been through SWAT training and everything, you know, we don't hold our breath anymore. We just draw and shoot fast. When you get in the home protection course, you're not going to be holding your breath anymore. You're just going to pop, 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 pop. You know, you're just going to shoot fast with defensive accuracy on the home protection course.